Hi everybody and welcome back to my booktube channel. My name's Leora and I talk on here about books, reading, writing and sometimes other stuff as well. And today I am finally here again with a recent reads video. It's been quite a while, like I keep wanting to do these more frequently but I never end up doing it, so I guess that's just the way I'm built. But today I'm going to be talking about all sorts of favourite books I've recently read. I'm also going to be talking about some books I read in December that I haven't really discussed on the channel that I really need to talk about. So I'm very excited to get into it. Silver in the Wood and Drowned Country by Emily Tesh. These were amazing. These were sort of cozy fantasies set in magical woods, queer forest gods falling in love. It was beautiful and I'm obsessed and I'm so happy I read these. They're both novellas, so you can read them fairly quickly and they were really good. I highly recommend. So there's a wild man who lives in the woods and he is sort of tethered to the woods. He's the man of the Green Hollow, which is the woods. His name is Tobias and he lives there with his dryads and his cats, and one of his dryads is called Bramble and she's so funny and so cute to read about and like very fierce and protective of him, and I just, oh, it was so nice. And then Green Hollow Hall acquires this very handsome, very nosy new owner, and this man is Henry Silver, and he ventures into the woods and he meets Tobias, and from there on out this whole adventure starts because there's dark forces working in the woods and Tobias has his tasks that he does every year, but what will happen if he's a little bit distracted by this very handsome man? This book is filled with green magic and it's so cozy and the vibes are mwah, vibing. And then I immediately went on and read the second book in the duology because I just had to, and that is Drowned Country. Also these covers, they're both so stunning. So without spoiling anything, in the second book Henry's mother turns up, Adela Silver. She's this very renowned practical folklorist, so she knows a lot about like the woods and the magic and the folklore, and she's stirring up some trouble. So these books were just little bombs of joy and so beautiful and so heartwarming, but at the same time like this undertone of intensity and like the force of nature. And I just love stories about green magic as well. I think it's so, I don't know, it's just like so lovely to read, and I think perfect for spring if you ask me. Because what else is a girl to do besides read books about ancient wood magic, right? Then another book that I read at the end of last year was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I think my copy is somewhere over here. I have the ugly copy because they don't sell the self-published original copy anymore, but that one was so beautiful. And then they were like, let's bring it to the masses. Let's make an ugly cover. Why? Why would they do that to me and everybody else? So A Dowry of Blood is the telling of Dracula's different brides and grooms also, because Dracula's bisexual in this. So Constanta is dying on the battlefield. That's literally the opening scene, and Dracula saves her from this gruesome death and she goes on to become the Unliving. This is such a sensual book. Like every page is like, the energy is just, there's so much tension. It's really well done. I think S.T. Gibson is a phenomenal writer. And then Dracula just keeps drawing in more brides and grooms to like this little polyamorous circle of them. And they're basically vampires traveling through history and different cities in history and just lounging about, being aristocrats and artists and having lavish parties and lots of romantic you know what. But Constanta quickly discovers that Dracula is having a secret, and this is like this entire web of secrets, and she kind of finds comfort in her rival consorts, and they kind of bond together and form this really special connection between them. With the lives of everyone she loves on the line, Constanta will have to choose between her own freedom and her love for her husband. But bonds forged by blood can only be broken by death. A big theme of this book is abuse and abusive relationships, so if you're sensitive to that, maybe skip this one. I personally felt the subject was really well handled, beautifully written, that at the same time touches on very real world issues and sort of dynamics that people can have, and I think it's a very important theme to be talked and read about. And I think the way it was woven into this fantasy story is just really well done. Next to that, a lot of the scenes and settings were just so well done and worked out. I felt like I was there, which was sometimes a good thing and sometimes an awful thing, but I thought this was a really good book and I loved it. And I'm so excited for everything else that S.T. Gibson is gonna write. And this year, I started off with a few different reads, but the first one that really was something that I adored was The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This book was a little bit silly, but I just had a really good time with it, and it was one of those books that just read away really easily, and I just love that sometimes. So we follow Hannah, who's a bodyguard for several celebrities and like famous people, but also very rich people. She basically does security agent work. And she has this really shit boyfriend that none of the readers, including me, liked. But then she is sent out to protect this man that is a famous rom-com star, and they have a lot of chemistry and tension, and her boyfriend is forced to watch them all day, like her protecting him. And because his mother is ill, she has to pretend she's his girlfriend. Oh my god. This was such a fun time. If you just want like a quick read that you'll have a good time with, you want to be enjoying yourself, then I highly recommend this one. It's also very, very funny. I had to laugh out loud at several points, and I love when books can do that for me, so I highly recommend. What I also really liked is that she's like the strong one that can tackle him, and like it's not the man so big, woman so small and tiny thing that sometimes happens in romance. And I kind of get annoyed by it every now and then, but in this book the roles are kind of reversed. Although there's still a point where he's like, there's no way you can tackle me, and she's like, you want a demonstration? And I just really enjoyed that. Then next up on the list of books that I've really, really enjoyed so far this year is Master of One by Jada Jones and Denny Bennett. Look at this edition. It's absolutely stunning. It's also been signed by both the authors in shiny pens as well. And the edges are sort of this glittery red, and it's just stunning. And it has a map at the beginning as well, which is incredibly pretty too. Now, if I were to describe this really quickly, I would say it's a Faye Six of Crows. This had been on my TBR for such a long time as well, but I'm really, really happy I finally got to it. So we start off the story with one lonely thief who gets caught up in a trap, basically. And there's a wizard called Morian, and he's like, hello, I'm a sorcerer, and I set this trap for you, and now you have to come with me because I need a master thief to steal something for me, secure something for me, and get through this really, really difficult thing full of traps and riddles in order to steal this ancient artifact. So Rags is like, I do not want to do that, but I have no choice because you've literally kidnapped me. He has to go through this maze with different weird magical doors and things, and that is basically the start of the story. So I think that's only like the first few 80 pages or something, which kind of surprised me. But from there on out, different members of the team get assembled, and like, it's just really good. There's so much banter and tension in this book, and all the characters have wonderful chemistry. I think it's also very funny. Rags was my favorite, but that's maybe because we spent so much time in his POV in the beginning, so I got like attached to him, and then when the POVs were switched, I was like, no, Rags. But I did really enjoy some of the other characters as well, and they all have magical sidekicks, which was also really great. The Fae takes such an interesting form in this book. It's like different from any other Fae and Fae realms I've ever read about, but I did enjoy it because it's like new and different than the things I've already consumed. I cannot find any information anywhere on whether this is supposed to be a standalone or if it's going to be a series, and I think it was originally meant to be a series, but like there's no news on if there's anything else going to come out, but I just thought it was so good. And I had a great time with this, and also it's like, how many pages? It's quite a big book. It's over 500 pages, and I read this in a whopping 3 days, and that is how good it was. Then I finally got around to Delicious in Dungeon 2, which I'm so excited about. This is a cozy fantasy manga series, and it's all about these travelers in a group going through this magical dungeon together, which has many rooms and is like crazy big and has like castles and woods and all sorts of magical, strange things inside of it. And at the point where they're in now, they're going through the actual dungeon, like catacomb pass, but they also encounter like this underground lake and a kelpie and like all sorts of different strange creatures. And basically the premise of Delicious in Dungeon is that they have to eat while they're at the dungeon, so they're like hunting monsters and making meals out of monsters. And so it's kind of like a cozy cooking thing. At the same time, they have like recipes for like how to cook a kelpie, etc. The tone is very light and humorous. There's good battle scenes as well. I enjoy all of the characters, like they're all a little bit silly, but in a good way. And it has this kind of slice of life vibe to it, even though it's definitely very adventurous, but I really, really enjoy that. Then I've also read The Little Witch by M. Rickert, which was on my TBR for a bit as well. This is such a cute, cozy horror novella, so that's definitely an interesting combination. I'm not sure if I've ever read any cozy horror before, but this was so good. It was basically about this lady who loves the trick-or-treating, and every year different children come to her house to trick-or-treat. A few years in a row, there's this little tiny witch who's come into the house, and there's a weird connection. There's like a weird thing happening between this old lady and the tiny witch, and the old lady sort of grows attached to the witch's odd nature. And another strange thing is that whilst all the children are like growing up and like getting older and bigger, the little witch seems to stay the same the whole time. Suffice to say, this little witch is no ordinary child, and a very odd relationship develops between the two of them, and that relationship may prove deadly and demonic. So yes, it was really weird to see a book that has so many cozy elements and then is also deeply uncanny and unsettling, but I thought it was a really funny combination. It kind of reminded me of like Coraline and, you know, Tim Burton-esque films, so I really enjoyed that. The atmosphere was really, really good in this book. Like the cover says it all. That's literally the vibe. So if you love that cover, I do highly recommend this novella. I read it during a train journey and that was perfect. So it's great for just a quick sit down to read in one go. And then we finally get to Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I read this a few weeks ago and I'm still reeling with it. I am so happy I finally picked this up. I finally made my romantasy vlog that I've been wanting to make for a long time, so definitely check that out. I will put it up somewhere. This is about Iris Winnow, who works at the newspaper reporting on the magical war that's happening at the front, and she and her rival columnist, they both want the position of columnist, are sort of weirdly attracted to each other. There's sentient houses, magical buildings, gods, folklore, this gigantic magical war happening. This book carries you away to a whole different world. The audiobook was also really good. It was so romantic, and like if you love pen paling and like romantic letter writing and stuff like that, highly recommend it. It just swept me off my feet and I just want more. So I really need to get to Ruthless Vows, which is the sequel. But if you want my full in-depth thoughts and experience reading this book, definitely check out my reading vlog. And the next book on my list is also a book I read in that reading vlog, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This cover is so stunning. I am still not over how beautiful that cover is. It's totally up my alley. In this story, we follow Cambridge professor Emily Wilde, who ventures off to this faraway country, which is kind of like Scandinavia, set in the mountains in the snow, and she's there to discover the local fair folk and do research to the local fairies in that area, because she's writing this gigantic encyclopedia all about different fairy sorts. And then her dashing and awfully handsome academic rival Wendell Bambleby arrives in the village as well, and he's there to help her, but maybe he's also kind of there to thwart her investigation. These two have the most funny dynamic between them. I loved it. It reminded me a lot of Bones and Dr. Brennan and Silly Booth. It's just like she just wants to focus on her research. She doesn't want like anything else, and he's like a romantic and super dramatic and like decorating the cozy cottage, and like she's like, leave me alone, I'm here to study. I also think that Wendell Bambleby has really big Howl energy from Howl's Moving Castle. So if you love Howl as a character, I mean, he's just like a vain and dramatic man, so that's why I draw the comparison. I really enjoyed this novel. It was such a fun time. It's definitely a bit slow here and there, and it kind of combines different short climactic storylines. So there's like different points where the story does that, and it's not like one big build-up, so you have to be up for that. It almost reads as if it's a short story collection, but it does have like a continual story throughout. I personally really liked it. I'm really looking forward to the second book, especially because I hope that the romance will be more worked out in that one and the tension will like come to, you know, a point. So I'm very excited to pick up Map of the Otherworlds, I believe it's called, and I definitely need this copy, like this edition of that as well, because so stunning. So those were some of my recent favorite books that I've read. I really enjoyed talking about them to you guys. Let me know in the comments down below, what are your favorite recent reads that you've picked up that you've really loved? And if you don't know what to comment, leave me a nice spring emoji, because yes, we are finally getting out of winter. March is so close, I can smell it, or maybe that's just the abundance of flowers I bought for myself, but I'm really very excited to get some sunshine again and to enjoy the springtime and read lots of spring books as well. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see all of you in my next video, hopefully. Have a lovely day.